courageous conversation.
One, if you could just stay on the conversation, there we go.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Just a real quick example of how this can be used. One of my white colleagues, as we were talking about this, when she sees something that might get her upset, she realizes like it's important to be self-aware. So she pulls herself and thinks, okay, I'm definitely in feeling right now. I have to stop myself from jumping right into acting. So she kind of, in order to center herself, kind of walks herself around the compass thinking, all right, what do I believe? Let me get back to my core beliefs. What's driving my anger? Think of those core beliefs, and then think about how someone else may have a different belief structure, different core beliefs that are bringing them into to do or act in a way that doesn't agree with what she believes. And then after she goes through all of that, she's gone through her beliefs, her thinking, and her feeling, then she's ready to act and really draw someone else in. So just a good example of how you can kind of use this and start thinking about that as a self-awareness tool, certainly from a white person's perspective. So now the 4 agreements, as we look at the 4 agreements, as we go through our conversation today, we're asking everybody to stay engaged. And engaged means whatever it means to you. However you're going to be engaged today is how we ask that you stay engaged. And this is from Courageous Conversations by Glenn Singleton. I want to make sure I give credit. We also ask, there will be some discomfort typically, so go ahead and experience that discomfort. That's necessary for growth in our understanding of social injustice and really everything. All right, as you're going to grow, you're going to find some discomfort. Go ahead and sit in that for a little bit. We're asking that everyone speak their truth using pronouns I, me, so that you don't generalize for any other group. Try and keep it just with your own truth. And then this is always the hardest for me, as I'm speaking my truth, expecting and accepting non-closure. So we know we don't have enough time to get through everything. This is continuous lifelong work, and we may be interrupted. You may not be able to finish a thought. That's going to happen for the rest of your life. And we know we can't, get closure on everything. So we just expect that that's going to happen, and we have to accept that at times.
So if you had the pleasure of being with our equity work, we have had 2 other meetings that dealt with race. John and Joaquin did an amazing job running those 2 things. If you're still interested in watching those, they are on our website for you to see. When they came to our group to say that they wanted to run these equity workshops, we were so excited, and we've all been working on incorporating them as a part of workshops and things that we're doing. So when they said that they also wanted to do 1 or 2 on LGBTQ, I said, well, I can help. I'm a gay, and they welcomed me. So that's kind of, I'm starting off, and we always kind of like to start with a personal story, because it kind of like just tells who they are, and just kind of like real quick about me. From the time I was in kindergarten, I always wanted to be a teacher, and I was an elementary school teacher. But I graduated college in 1994, 95, somewhere around there. And I made the decision that I was going to be an elementary school teacher, and I was not going to be out. And I didn't feel like it was going to be safe. And I wasn't sure what it was going to be like. And I worked there for close to 10 years as a closeted people trying to set me up with women, kind of do things, but I never felt like it was safe. I got the job at Deerfield High School, and I said to myself, you're only going to take this job under one condition. Well, several, but the one main condition for myself, for my mental health, for my physical health, for my emotional health, was that you weren't going to be closeted anymore. And that had to stop. And I just think that it is so important for students to know that there's a gay administrator in the building. We have several, and several that are out. But just that the importance of that, and I'm not judging anybody who isn't out at their school or can't be. Please, this is my personal story. It was something about me that I had to do. But I felt like it was so important to me and for my experience for me to be an authentic activities director and to be able to help my students. And it was interesting because when I got hired, they said, well, your first day is tomorrow and you're meeting Glenn Singleton and we're doing courageous conversations and working with PEG. So it's kind of interesting that 14 years later, my life is coming full circle. And we're also still talking about race, still talking about LGBTQ plus. I'm not an expert. Just because I'm gay doesn't make me an expert on anything gay wise. But I not only am an administrator at Deerfield High School, but I also am part of our support group for our LGBTQ plus community. And so some of the things I'm going to talk about are going to be experiences and things that I've heard from our kids. Again, it's my experience, my personal story, things that we've experienced. So just kind of want to share that with you off the bat. So GLSEN is a great organization, and their mission is to ensure that every member of every school community is valued and respected, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. And I just kind of want you to watch a real short video right now, please.
Sometimes you need to get away from the kids for grown-up time.
And
Or
early
get away
vacation
from the
was the
grown-ups for
idea.
kid time. And just get away from home together.
So I loved this video, but there's also, I want to say something and talk about that real quick. I think that name calling and those post-it notes, there's a lot of us have done post-it note activities in our school. And so I want to make sure, like, creating safe spaces for kids, I don't think that it would be a good idea to all of a sudden say to kids, let's put up post-it notes in the building about what are some slurs that we use. And probably some of you are going, yeah, duh, I would never do that. But I just think it's important to kind of name that and say that. But I had found that in doing this presentation, I had found that video because I was looking at that at GLSEN and other resources that we're going to share later. And it's an activity that I do think that I could do in my support group. So myself, the school social worker and a school psychologist, as we work with our kids who identify as LGBTQ+, I think that that's something we can do is, and we have done, what are some of the slurs and stereotypes that are said about our community? Because that's a safe space and that's a safe room. And then we can talk about how do we break those down, or what are some things that we'd like to be known for, or what are some things. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there because I didn't want anyone to think, oh, Brian at Deerfield thinks we should just be putting up Post-it notes of slurs all around our school. But I think that that could be something that certain groups could do, or maybe what if you have some sort of, and we're going to talk about this, some sort of GSA, Gay Straight Alliance in your building, that club, they could talk about to do that too. So that's that. So one of the first things that we're going to talk about, because it's big, like you've heard John and Joaquin and I start with our pronouns. So this slide is about pronouns and safe spaces. And so we want to kind of like talk about that and kind of go from there. Pronouns are important, and it might not be as important to some adults, especially some of our cisgender heteronormative adults, but it is really important to our kids. They love seeing people with their pronouns in their Zoom, in their classrooms, whatever. These are my experiences at DHS and what my students have experienced. They see it as a sign of respect, and they see it as a sign of a teacher respecting them. So you may say, well, I mean, don't they know who I am? Don't they know that I've told them I'm married? They can see that I have a husband, I'm female. They can see that I'm heterosexual, that I've married. I've shown pictures. Wouldn't they automatically know? It shows them the respect. And I think that that's what's really important to them. So showing them that respect and putting your pronouns in and asking their pronouns really means a lot to them. And even doing it on Zoom. For us, like, it's really easy for anyone to rename themselves. You go to your three little dots in the upper right-hand corner and say rename, and you can add your pronouns there at any time. Our district had a form to fill out, and you could put whatever pronouns that you wanted. The whole staff got that, and we submitted that, and it was great. And it has been talked a lot about with our students, how happy they were to see so many teachers doing that. The thing of it is, though, and what the important part is, if you're going to ask students what their pronouns are, you have to mean it, respect it, mean it, and use them. So I think one of the most hurtful things for kids is that start with something simple. Start with, when you don't know their name, you know it hurts them. When you ask them what their pronouns are and then you don't use the correct pronouns, it's even more hurtful for our kids in the LGBTQ plus community. So please, what I'm asking is, if you're going to decide to do that, which I hope a lot of people will, but if you're going to use it, then respect it and use them properly. And we all make mistakes, and the kids know that. And the kids know that we make mistakes. I do it all the time. I have misgendered. I have said the wrong pronouns. I've done it. And if I've realized I've done it in the moment, if I've misgendered, I'll use John because he's at my screen right here. If I misgender John in a meeting in our group session, I just go, I'm so sorry, John, that I just misgendered you. Or I'm so sorry, John, I used they, them pronouns and you go by he, him, I'm so sorry. And then I just move on. Or if I didn't catch right away, but I realize it later, sometimes I'll say, hey, John, can I see you after class? Or John, after group, and then apologize. And it means a lot to them. We have another video. And then I promise we're done with videos, but this one also, to me, when we were talking about student experiences, what we really wanted to do, or what we have loved to have done, was get our high school students to talk to you. But I found a really great video about pronouns, and I wanted you to see that. So it's 3 minutes long, a little bit over 3 minutes. But I think it's really important, and it does speak to a lot of experiences that I know our children, our students hear.
You can call me he, you can call me she, you can call me Regis and Kathy Lee.
Simple. Pronouns are not hard, but people's understanding of them apparently is.
Simple. Simple. I just feel like I'm not stabbing myself in the leg every 7 days with testosterone for them to call me she.
Respect. I think it's always important to ask someone what they use, what honors them, and to use that.
Gender, the way people look, isn't necessarily descriptive of who they are inside.
Difficult. As someone who considers themselves non-binary, I have a lot of trouble interacting with people who've never interacted with someone who uses they, them pronouns.
When people hear that I use he, she, and they pronouns, I think they get a little bit nervous, because what if they start using one pronoun and then they say a different pronoun in the next sentence? Then everyone will think they messed up.
He, she, it, they, it's just a word.
I don't like it when people call me a he. I feel like they need to be corrected right on the spot.
When someone knows about my fluidity and chooses a pronoun that resonates well with me in the moment.
A key to educate oneself about who you let into your life and how they want to be identified.
Useful. If anything, I'd be more hung up on the need some people feel to attach preferred. That could give people an inaccurate idea of what being trans is, because my pronouns aren't preferred, they just are, because my gender is not, a desire that I have or like a wish or something. It's who I am. It's just part of me.
Useful. I mean, it's easier to talk to somebody when they know how to address you.
Feel good about pronouns. It feels great to have the ability to choose your own pronouns.
Constant. That is a thing that I constantly have to fight for. All my friends and family are on board, so I don't have to worry so much. But I always worry about what pronouns strangers are using for me in their heads, which is really just a silly thing I should not even be thinking about.
Individuality. Given they might not know how to address you unless you tell them, or if they ask and you answer them.
I would say patience would be the word I think of. When somebody uses my pronoun, I don't get angry. I just re-correct them and help them really understand, the importance of how misusing somebody's pronoun can be offensive.
Identity. And you better get it right. In the workplace, people who persistently misgender you are actually guilty of sexual harassment. So what's more important? How you see me or respecting how I see me?
Like, why? I've watched that video, I think 4 times now. I still get a little emotional every time I see it, because I see that in my kids. And I always think to myself, how? Like, I want my student, I don't need to understand everything they're going to. Listen, I have a purse collection that will match anybody's purse collection. We can, if you want to ever have a meeting about it, we can go through purses and look. But I have never felt like I wanted to be trans. And I drive a lifted Jeep Wrangler. I will carry my purse to my lifted Jeep. I've never felt that I want to be female. I've never felt trans. It's not about, it's about respecting that person and letting that person, what the pronoun. So I don't need to understand what it's like to be a trans student at Deerfield High School. Again, I'm just trying to make sure I'm personalizing it in what my situation is. But I do know that I want all my students to feel comfortable at school. So that's why we wanted to show you that, that video. And I think that there was so many, it went from simple words like simple, and then it went to a word like constant. And that the one student was saying what a constant battle it was for them every day. And how can they concentrate on school if they're constantly having to remind people or worry about if someone's going to misgender or use the wrong pronouns for them? And it weighs heavily on their mind. if you ever need help with that, like in figuring out pronouns, and listen, I'm 48 years old. They, them, and I work with a support group using it took me a minute. It's okay to admit that it took me a minute. I made sure I didn't do that in front of my students to say that it took me a minute. I'm saying it here on this space because we're adults learning from each other. I wish I had the website mypronouns.org to kind of help me. So that's there, and it's a great resource to help you kind of understand stuff. And to understand what the different pronouns mean. So please use that. HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, the ACLU, Campus Pride, the Trevor Project, Stop Bullying, a Google search about resources to help teachers, to help educators understand LGBTQ plus issues in school, pronoun, whatever it is. You will find a plethora of, I had like 16 other video clips to show. I chose those two, but there was just so many different things that you can do. And when we're talking about supporting kids and respecting them, a lot of straight allies will say, oh, I put a sign in my door. Like I put an ally flag. That's amazing. And I think that's so great. Or I wear a button, or I make sure that I participate. I think that that's great. I put in there, and I hope that you see it. There's two important things about that in a school. I come from the elementary world. So my 5th grade classroom was my 5th grade classroom. No one else had it but me. At a high school, it's a very different situation. Now, luckily, I'm the student activities director. My office is my office. And there's lots of safe space, rainbow flags, lots of things going on in there, lots of unicorns that students have given me or that I've bought and different stuff. I want students to know that my office is a safe space, but I'm the only one that owns that space. So I just ask this. If you're a teacher and you have a classroom that's all your own, or at your desk, that's great. If you believe in that and you want to put your ally flag out, that you support kids, I think that that's wonderful. If you share that space, that's what I want you to be careful about, because kids will say it all the time. And they're like, 3 teachers share that room. And I know one is very supportive. I know one that's not, and I'm not sure about the other. And so I think that that's the confusing part for kids, is because they see that, and now it may be a setup for some, because unfortunately we all know we have colleagues that might not actually be a safe person to go to. So I put that in there because Campus Pride, although it will have ways for you to show your support, just wanted to mention that. If you are in a shared space, please be conscious of who you share that with. So safe spaces, and just kind of like, what does that mean? Because sometimes there's probably a million memes out there about a safe space, and people using it in a negative connotation. But what we're trying to say is, if one of your students who identifies on the LGBTQ plus spectrum needs a safe space to go, I just want you to think for a second. You don't have to say anything out loud. Is there a safe space in your school? I'm hoping that right away at least one spot came to mind. But I'm also hoping that there's more than one place in your building that's safe. I mean, I hope that there's more than one place in the building for all students. And if there's not, well, we've got bigger issues at your building. But if anybody wants to throw in the chat, like, what's a safe space at your school? Like, what is a place that you can think of in your building that is safe for a transgender student to go to, for a gay student who just got called a faggot in the hallway, for a kid who just got pushed down or spit on? Do you have a safe space in your building? If you don't feel like saying it out, you could just type yes, no. Just kind of wondering if anybody wanted to throw in the chat, like, where was a safe spot? Michelle, I so thank you for your honesty. I love that. I appreciate that. I love my offices, student services, the main office. Awesome. Great. Well, activities directors, I mean, they better be safe spaces for everyone. I hope so. Brittany, if I ask you what student affairs means, what's student affairs? If you don't want to share, or our student life department. Oh, okay. Awesome. I love, thank you for keep, if you all of a sudden you think of other things, I think that that's so great, because I think that that's so important. If you said you weren't sure, if you didn't type anything because you didn't know, or Karen, thank you so much for just saying what you just wrote. Do you wonder if your students know? So here's, I think, what after the challenge I'm going to leave you after this slide is, if you don't know where they are, or if you don't know where they are, or if you don't know where they are, if you don't know if your students know where they are, what can you do to help fix that? Because, because listening to that student talk about constant pain, that hits me the most, because being in the counseling group that I'm in, I hear that all the time from students who are in constant pain. And I just, let's find those safe spaces, true safe spaces for kids, that can work for them and work for you. And Joaquin, you're right. The students will tell you they know where the safe space is, and in a minute, once I stop crying and talking, John's going to take over and talk about unsafe spaces. But there's also going to be kids who just really don't know where to go. So I think that's great. Casey, thank you for saying that. That's wonderful. Saying it, name it, say it, talk about it. And I bet you it's even harder that we're in Zoom, or that we're not back full time, or wherever your school district is. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that story and all of that. So thank you. Moving on, we're gonna break into small groups of about 4 or 5 in a moment, provided we can. I don't have access to do that, but maybe Brian, as the host, maybe you could do that. So there are 2 parts. First, we're going to break into small groups. The second part of that is that you have to come back afterward. So it's only going to be about 4 or 5 minutes. And I'm going to kind of go through the agenda right here to kind of show everybody what we're going to be doing. We'll ask for introductions first. I'm going to go ahead and model this. You know what? No, I'm going to ask Joaquin to go ahead and model this for us, sure. And then I'll go ahead and throw it in afterwards. We'll go through all 5 of these as your comfort level allows.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So the 3 C's of corner, color, culture, corner, culture, color, sexuality, gender identity. So corner, nationality, what's on your passport is could be that, ethnicity, race, right? So I am a U.S. citizen. I am Mexican American. I am brown. I am heterosexual, cisgender male.
All right, thank you. So if I were doing this, I'd say, you know, I'm a U.S. citizen, Southside Irish, I am white, heterosexual, cisgender male. Again, if you want to use 3 of those, you want to do 4 of them, you want to do 2 of them, whatever your comfort level is with the group that you're in, because you might be, you know, just meeting some people for the very first time, which often is easier to open up or not. So we'll leave that up to you. In those groups, after you go through your intros, we're asking you to talk a little bit about how safe LGBTQ plus students feel in your building. If you have any data that's available, that's awesome. In Maine 207, we use panorama data, and I only pulled out 2 data points for us to look at. But when we look at school belonging, panorama will give you a percentage of like all students, and then it'll show you subgroups broken out. So for our belonging, we have a number for all students. When you get to any students who identify as LGBTQ plus, that number for belonging drops by 14%. Students who identify as transgender, it drops 33%. So those are 2 data points that really kind of leap out at us. If you don't have data, there's probably anecdotal stories or data that you know about how safe students feel in your building. And then talk a little bit about where they might feel the most unsafe, and then how we could help them feel safe in our clubs or activities. And when we come back, we're going to ask for an idea or 2 to come out from each group if we could. So I will, oh, Joaquin, thank you for doing that. I was going to say I would copy the questions and put them in there, but he's one step ahead of me.
And I've got the breakout rooms ready to create. I've never done this before. I'm so excited. This
all right, so we'll go into
breakout room button. You know what? Don't
breakout rooms, and then in 4 minutes we'll come back.
All right, go. Go.
Exec board, I'm going to stay here, or should we join rooms? What do you think?
I don't know. It didn't put me in a room, did it?
No, probably not.
Or is this a room?
I'll stay here and keep you company. Nice job.
Yeah, hopefully that, and then I can send them a message. Yeah, of course we talked longer than I wanted to. I didn't mean to do that.
No, it's okay.
And meanwhile, like, also my dogs are like crawling in between my legs, like they're down here like sniffing at me. I'm like, get away. They want no. Now the one is like trying to climb the cabinets. Like, I don't know. I'm losing control.
This is the first TNT where I haven't been drinking.
Awesome. Oh. Well, there's one room with, oh, wait. Yeah, there's one room.
Oh, I see. We've got.
One room only has 2 in it. Oh, 2 rooms have 2. They're fine. They can get to know each other.
Oh, oops. Should I join that room?
No, there's 2 of them that are like that. They're fine.
Tim Dahl, he's a good dude.
I don't know him, do I?
I think I know him from an interview process somewhere. Not my interview.
Oh yeah, we're also being recorded right now, I think.
That's right.
So just so you know, we have 3 slides after this.
Okay. So I think
so Joaquin, if you come back and watch this, we're talking about you right now. We're cutting your time. Just kidding.
So maybe
should I tell them 2-minute warning?
Maybe I skip the clubs. Should we skip the clubs?
I don't think we need to. Here's what we can do. Let's talk about that, but we don't need to. I think it'd be interesting to discuss that about GSA and what that means, but that could be large group and that can be on the quicker side.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Should I give everybody
a
1 minute warning?
Yeah, 1 minute warning. Perfect. Actually, I think if you close the rooms, it'll give you a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I close the rooms?
Yeah, and then that'll give them a 60-second warning, right?
All right. Close.
Okay, then I'll do, we'll process in large groups now, and I'll ask for someone from each group to speak.
Right.
Got it. Probably should have paused the recording. If anyone's watching this recording, we apologize for not pausing it during that time.
Hi, everybody.
Such great conversations.
I know, and I'm
Welcome
sorry.
back.
I talked too much. I did. I'm sorry.
No. You are
not at all.
I know. You're just saying that because I'm pretty. Fine.
No, that was great. That was great. Chris, if you don't mind, we can probably stop sharing for right now. We'll jump back in it in a minute, but I'd like to maybe call on those rooms and just see if someone from each room would be able to share out something that you learned, maybe introduce yourself to the group, and something that came up in your discussion. So let's start with room 1.
I don't mind to jump in real quick here. Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa McLean. I work at Glenbard East High School in Lombard. And to try to go through some of those identifiers, I suppose, I am a cisgendered female who identifies as gay, and I use she, her pronouns. And one of the things that just came up as we were leaving, which I hadn't thought about, and Karen mentioned, our freshmen specifically, do they know where to go? And not only because they're new to our building, but many of them haven't been in our building. And so how do we communicate that to them as they continue to struggle with hybrid, virtual, remote, in person? Not only are they dealing with the stress of what is a pandemic and how they're figuring out how to learn in high school, but where do they go to find a safe space? And so what do we do as people in our positions to help our teachers understand how to communicate that with students, those who are willing and able to talk about these topics and identifiers, and those freshmen specifically who've never been in the building? How do we make sure that they're aware of those spaces?
Yeah, that's a great point, Marissa. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think that's interesting. It's probably something maybe that would come up in any of your link crew or freshman orientation groups or anything like that, but I don't believe that that's been an agenda item in the past, right? Probably something, I know it's not on the link crew, agenda that they put together. So that's a really good point. Probably something that we'll look to add as we move forward. Thank you for that. Second group, anything from group 2?
I'll jump in. I'm Casey Duval from Grant High School. I was very honest with my group. I had never even heard the term cisgender coming to before this meeting tonight. So I had to do a little research, and I was happy to find out what it meant. So I'm a cisgender white male from the US of A, heterosexual, he, him, his. And something Ryan was talking about before we came back to the big group was where the safe places are in Lake Zurich. And what triggered something in my mind right now is we have safe spaces, but how do we make our unsafe spaces safer? Taking the next step to making locker rooms or changing rooms, a theater, anywhere where kids are very vulnerable in particular situations. How can we make small steps to make those places safer before we can call them safe? Just a thought that came to mind.
Great thought, Casey. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for coming here and learning. That's great. I love that. All right, someone from group 3, please.
I can go. I'm the activities director at Grays Lake Central and North. My name's Deanna. Heterosexual, cisgender female. I'm Italian and German, white female. And so something we talked about was Panorama. As soon as you mentioned that before we did the breakout groups, my school has it, but I don't have access to it. And Joaquin let me know that I can talk to my administration to find out if we even have that checkbox to get that data. Because I don't know if we even have that hard data, which is important for me and what I do. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Deanna. Yeah, if you don't have Panorama and you have the power to get it, it's pretty great. Really powerful, and you can get a lot of data, and the way they disaggregate it is really, really helpful for activity stuff, for all that we do. I think there was one more group, right? Group 4 or 2 more? 4 or 5? Okay.
My name's Tim Dalton. I'm the assistant principal down at Andrew High School in Tinley Park. Irish, white, heterosexual, cisgender male. Nice meeting you all. Thanks for putting this on. Chris and I were talking during our time, and I've been reflecting in our conversation of, I was saying how confident I felt that there are spots for kids to go and feel comfortable. And then I go back and I keep thinking about what evidence do I have of that? You know, so it sort of challenged me to go back and talk to different kids and talk to different adults in the building running certain clubs and say, what evidence do I really have to feel this confident? And then to go back and challenge myself for that. And that's just one thing that came out of my conversation when I was talking with Chris, as I was thinking about it some more. I say, no, I think we got spots, and because I've heard of adults and kids having good conversations, but one-offs doesn't make a whole school climate, right? So that's what was processing through my conversation. Chris, I'm not sure if I missed anything, but.
No, that was great.
Thanks, Tim. And
that was,
go ahead.
No, that was great. Tim, thank you. I think that it's so easy for adults. No one wants to say their school is bad or their school is, I mean, who wants to ever say that? I mean, yeah, my school's unsafe. I mean, no one wants to raise their hand for that answer. You know what I mean? I think that that's where we grow, though. Mm-hmm. Like, it's the only way we grow is that if you can admit, I don't know, or I don't think so, or there isn't, whatever it is, and then how to fix it. Because if you don't have safe spaces for your students to go to, then you're right. What kind of climate is there? And then who are we serving? So thank you.
No, thank you.
And Casey, you made me think of something, and it was something I've meant to mention to John and Joaquin. We put the definitions and stuff at the end of the presentation. We should have moved that more forward to have that conversation, because I thank you for admitting that you didn't know what something meant. My kids in group teach me new words all the time. I had no idea what pansexual meant forever. When finally I looked at everybody and said, you keep saying pansexual, I have no idea what that means. So it's just interesting. Like I admit that you don't know something, figure out what it is, and respect and move on. Sorry, go.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you for naming that. It's our kids teach us so much if we just let them and admit to them that we don't know things, right? It's a great way to learn. All right, and there was one last group, group 5.
I was in that group. Sorry, I was looking for my mute button with Michelle. And we were talking about not knowing, we didn't even get to the safe spaces in our school. We were talking about the ability to be able to admit when we didn't know what terms meant and look them up, and then to be able to have those conversations with kids too, to make that actually a safe space, and kids will come, to be able to have those conversations with students too. Like what you were just saying, Brian, too.
Thanks, Sally. Any other takeaways before we move on? We're coming up a little close. We didn't leave Joaquin nearly enough time, but we'll we've definitely got, we might run a few minutes over. You're welcome to stick around if you have a few extra minutes here tonight. All right, Brian, are you going to take us through the clubs, or did you want me to do that?
You know what, so one of the things that we were talking about, this was going to be John's boat. John and I were talking when you guys were all in breakout rooms, and I'm going to try and shorten this up a little bit, because I think, and I mentioned GSA. So when you have, GSA is a term that a lot of schools still use, meaning Gay Straight Alliance. And one of the things that I know a lot of schools are talking about is renaming that club. So their club for students who identify an LGBTQ. And my school, the students asked to rename it years ago, it's got to be a good 6 to 8 years ago now. And I was like, sure, what do you want to name it? And they were like, well, we're going to talk. And I'm like, okay. They felt that saying Gay Straight Alliance, it was leaving out, like, why are you only saying gay? And why are you saying straight? First of all, there's not many straight people here. And this is really about a safe space for us. And creating that club that was safe for them, and calling it a GSA wasn't helpful. So they wanted to call it Spectrum. It was interesting because I sat down with my principal at the time with other people, and I was like, Spectrum, I don't like that word. Like, that has a different meaning to adults. And then kids were like, kids didn't care. They were like, this is what we want. And then I just finally said, if this is what they want to call themselves, this is what I want them to be. Like, I want the students to be able to name their group. So they're called Spectrum. We've heard of Rainbow Friends, Organization for Sexuality and Gender Equity. A couple of people are putting stuff in. So I want you to, if you have a GSA, I'm glad you have a GSA. And we're not putting you down if it's still called a GSA. And if your kids aren't asking for it to be changed, I don't want it. I'm not telling you to change it. But I think that that's an interesting conversation to have with, especially if you're an activities director, to have with your club sponsor. Like, have the kids ever brought this up? Maybe he's going to say, maybe your sponsor, see, I just did it. I just said he, my GSA, my Spectrum sponsor is he. Maybe they will say, oh yeah, they brought it up, but I never mentioned it to you because I didn't think it would happen. And you're going to be like, wait, what? So have that conversation if you can, to see if that is something that they would want to change. I want to talk about one other thing, and then I'm going to promise Joaquin. Oh, I love these. Committed to, and these are such great names. Sexual and Gender Sage. That's so cool. I love that one too. It's just interesting with activities wise. There was a rumor that was going around when I first started that all gay kids got a half-price ticket to prom. And I went, the hell is that? What? I'm like, that's not a thing. I always joke with the gay kids in group with Marco. I'm like, you're not going to get a half price. You're getting it for free. And they would always just laugh. They're like, wait, really? Can we get a half price? And I'm like, no, you're paying full price. Like, there's just interesting kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Rumors, things like, why there's another word and I can't think of it, that are out there about, like, I wonder, is that happen at your school too? Like, where they make assumptions about what LGBTQ plus kids get. And that's a weird thing. And it kind of all started when I started. And I'm guessing that's because I was an out administrator. So someone just made that up. But just something to think about. Is there any activities or club things that there's assumptions made? Joaquin, I'm done talking.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Thanks, John. So before I start, I'm just going to talk about some resources. So those of you who may still be using historical coronation of king and queen, Northwestern moved to a gender-neutral celebration of their homecoming Wildcats. Wildcats, I'm thinking of ETHS. ETHS moved to homecoming royalty in about 2015. So If you can do me a favor, put in the chat real quick if your schools have already moved away from the gender binary of king and queen. If you could just put in your school's name, just so we can give an understanding. Because I know there's a current school working on that who has just moved to that. You can put your name in there also. Awesome, Chris. Yes. All right, prospect. We don't do courts, yeah. Yep. A lot of schools are moving away from it altogether, right? Moving away from the popularity contest that is. John stopping court this year at Maine West. Yeah. So just think about that, y'all. You know, think about who's truly included in that, and where do our transgender, non-binary students, like where is their space in King and Queen and those celebrations? So I'll read through these resources, and then we're going to share out all this wonderful information with y'all. So one, it's really good to have a common language and understanding when talking about and advocating for marginalized identities, specifically for LGBTQ plus identities, humans, and people. So a glossary is going to be really important. Chris, you want to click on that real quick? So this is something where when I was hired as director of equity in Evanston, this was the first ask to make sure that there was a common language around racial equity and LGBTQ plus equity. That should be a live link if you click on that. There we go. And so if you can scroll down, Chris. And so what I did is I got these, I wanted to make sure they weren't made up for myself, right? I'm a cisgender heterosexual male, right? So I pulled resources from the Human Rights Campaign. I also added, like, to the right, you can tweet it out, also that specific definition, and scroll all the way down. What I did is I added resources around Evanston 65 that our parents, our kiddos, and our caregivers and guardians could tap into. So these are all the resources around the Evanston area and also Chicagoland, right? And looking at the center in Halstead. So think about where your school is situated. Think about what that glossary could look like, and who would you team with in your school or your district, and then what are the local resources that our LGBTQ plus youth and staff could really have access to. And so that's going to be really important. And if your area or community doesn't have those resources, then let's find them, like, what's closely available. Thanks a lot, Chris. Let's head back to those slides. Appreciate it. So glossary is number one, and you can click on the district gender support policy and procedures if you want to open on that up real quick. And so that second bullet, it was really important for us to add in specific policies and procedures that were approved by the board, so that as we're advocating for our kiddos and our teachers and our principals and administrators and staff members, et cetera, are advocating, because there will be pushback from certain parts of the community. And we wanted to make sure that all of our staff members were supported by policy and by procedures that were approved by the board, in terms of specifically as we went to our gender support procedures, our gender support plans, systems change forms of changing our systems so that students have their affirmed name and pronouns within the documents that they're accessing every day, so that harm is not, happening on a daily basis. That was really important for us. And we also added something called a affidavit of parental change form. And so that's an option for parents as a third tier to be able to hide their kiddo's birth certificate. So the only people are able to see that are master users in the district. Let's go ahead. And you can actually, Chris, if you want to scroll down to the left where it says resources, like the gender support teams, yeah, right there. So if you ever want to find a template of what it would look like for your school to have a solid gender support plan, I highly recommend this. This was vetted through 2 organizations, one being the Illinois Safe School Alliance and second being Laurie Children's Hospital, which are incredible resources. They have a lot of great knowledge to pull from. That's an example of the student information change request form for all the systems, and then an affidavit for parentage form. And we also have just resources of, Gender 101, Brian mentioned, right? For pronoun tips, we have 10 there that are really good, and then LGBTQ key terms. Thanks, Chris. We're going to bounce back to the, thank you. All right, so just wanted to mention LGBTQ plus curriculum. So JV passed a bill in July 1, 2020. So if you have not seen or been a part of conversations of how LGBTQ plus history is being involved and integrated with fidelity within your curriculum, I would ask that question and ask about where is this living? How are we, building upon this bill into fruition, which is going to be really important. And what I added there on the LGBTQ plus curriculum, Chris, if you want to click on that, what that is our District 65 website what we did is we did a LGBTQ plus equity week. And so this is the live site that is there. And so we got ahead of it. So we rolled this out of an entire week of learning for our school district for 65, October 7th through the 11th, right? And so this is going to be coming up on the 3rd year of LGBTQ plus equity week. And so just because JB passed a bill in July 2020 doesn't mean we have to drag our feet, is what I'm trying to say. It shouldn't have to come as a mandate. Our LGBTQ plus history has been the history of this country and in this world. LGBTQ identities have been a part of this world's history forever. And so it's important to ensure that our students see themselves in the curriculum and they know the contributions of our world, our country, our state, our city, and why it looks the way it does. And our LGBTQ plus family members have been a part of that throughout history. And so they need to know. So let's make that a priority, y'all. Professional development, just wanted to name real quick. If you go to the next slide, Chris, Hadi Safi has been an incredible resource for us at 65. Evanston is now working with us at District 207 in Maine. They are incredible. They come with an incredible team. And we have a few staff members on the call right now that could speak to the liveliness and the engagement of what they bring. So we have had 2 sessions of our entire district going through Gender 101. And then all of our student services team are going to engage in a full day workshop in April to solidify common language and ensure that we're all advocating on the same page and ensuring that all of our kiddos know where to go, and the staff members that are supporting them throughout the building have a clear understanding of the language and how to support our kiddos, and then point them to the supports that they have currently existing in our district and also in the surrounding community. So thank you all. I'm looking at the time. It's 9:08. All right, I didn't go over that much. Back to you, Brian and John.
Well, we gave you 3 whole minutes, so I can't believe you took all that time. I mean, what were you thinking, Joaquin?
Well, let me get 2 more minutes. Can I get 2 more minutes?
You can have 2 more minutes.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this to all the cisgender heterosexual people in the room, specifically those of you who identify as male. Some people have had the gall. Other cisgender males who are heterosexual have had the gall to ask me, why do you give so much attention to LGBTQ? You're not even gay, Joaquin. And so my response is, what about this is uncomfortable for you? Number one. And if you want to know why it's personal for me, because it is, why isn't it personal for you in serving the students we serve each day? And I've gotten that at each of the 3 districts I've worked at, except for the one I'm currently in. I haven't got it there yet, but I've gotten there. And the reason why I point that out is because we shouldn't have to be gay. We shouldn't have to be transgender. We shouldn't have to be on the LGBTQ identity in terms of what I hold in my life. That shouldn't have to be a qualifier for me to advocate for the people in my life that I love personally and the people I love in my life professionally. If I'm picking up a paycheck in public education, that is my purpose. And sometimes we have to remind people of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for just saying that. I think it's crucial and important for allies to speak up and be a part of the solution and the conversation and the learning, because it's okay to learn. And hopefully you learned a few things tonight. And hopefully you'll be able to take away some of these things. I know that it's really difficult, and it's really difficult for all students right now in the environment that we're living in. But I hope that you could take these back, and it's not about making a change tomorrow. It's about helping make the change for the future. And however we get kids back in and whenever we do that, to create safe spaces and for all of our students. So we really appreciate you being here. Thank you. It'll be, somebody asked and Sally answered. I forgot who asked. I'm sorry. Michelle, it will be tomorrow, usually some point. We put up the recorded conversation and the presentation on the IDSA website. So it'll be there. And even if you didn't register, tell your friends. If they want to come watch, they're welcome to. Share, use. You can use whatever you want from this. Feel free. If you want to stay, if anybody has any questions, you can. John Joaquin, thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it.
Chris, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, John. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone. Have a beautiful night. Go ahead and go sledding.
You.
Joaquin, did you go sledding?
So Karen, I have an idea for us at Maine East. I'm gonna send an email out to the group. John and I may collaborate on this. I'm seriously wanting to get people together to go sledding. I'm not kidding. John said that at Maine West they have a hill. You're all in? All right, cool.
Yeah, I was thinking about it all day today. I'm like, do I text Joaquin and ask him if he's going? So